So, to start off, picture this. A Russian man is just sitting inside a rented Mercedes.
Right.
He's on a London street corner, and the snow is coming down all around him, kind of like wet ash.
Oh, wow. That's a vivid image.
Yeah, and he's listening to this old live recording of Frank Sinatra just sitting there perfectly still
Right, right.
because he is waiting to murder a man in cold blood.
Just casually waiting.
Exactly. And, what you really have to understand right away about this scenario is that literal nothing, and I mean nothing you've been conditioned to expect from, like espionage stories, is actually going to happen here.
No, it is the absolute antithesis of the whole cinematic spy thriller thing.
Yeah,
I
completely.
mean, there is no sleek tuxedo. There's no, high-tech weaponry engineered in some subterranean laboratory.
Or the snappy one-liners.
Exactly. There isn't even like a pulse-pounding score playing in the background. It is just the brutal, freezing reality of a guy waiting in the dark.
Okay, let's unpack this because we are diving deep into the source material today, specifically excerpts from the critically acclaimed espionage thriller The Hidden Man by Charles Cumming.
Yes, the author of A Spy by Nature.
Right. And our mission today is not just to give you, the listener, a play-by-play summary of a book.
No, nobody wants just a book report.
Exactly. Because if you're listening to this, maybe you're prepping for a meeting, or maybe you're just wildly curious about how modern intelligence actually works compared to the movies.
Right.
Either way, you are going to want to hear how real the trade craft is here. We are going to unpack how the massive tectonic geopolitical shifts of the post-Cold War era, how they don't just stay in the halls of government.
They really don't.
No, they directly infect the deeply personal dynamics of a single family. We're exploring the psychological toll of living a life built entirely on lies.
And it is so vital to establish the analytical tone we're taking here. Because when critics, like Robert Harris or institutions like the Sunday Telegraph, praise Cummings' work,
Which they do, heavily.
yeah, they absolutely do. And they focus on its absolute authenticity. They highlight how he captures the bone-deep loneliness and that constant vibrating anxiety of an individual who has chosen to lie for a living.
It's a heavy burden.
It is.
Yeah.
So conceptually, I want you to imagine your surroundings shifting right now. Like move away from the comfort of a warm room or your cozy library and step onto that frost-covered, totally unforgiving London street corner.
Okay, yes. Let's look at the actual mechanics of this assassination scene because it's a masterclass in real tradecraft.
It really is.
Let's just look at the assassin's gear. He puts on like this flimsy wool hat and a pair of leather gloves, but he didn't get these from some super secretive quartermaster in a basement.
No, not at all. Where did he get them?
He bought them at a completely unremarkable, totally mundane shop in Hammersmith just 3 days prior.
And that detail, I mean, that is everything.
Right, because why would you want bespoke gear?
Exactly. In real-world covert operations, you do not want bespoke, untraceable gear that, ironically, becomes perfectly traceable because of its uniqueness.
Because it stands out.
Right. You want mass-produced, cheap items that, 1,000 other people in the city are wearing on that exact same day.
So if you drop a glove, it's just a glove.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The gloves are just warm enough to function in a mild British winter. They're completely sterile from an intelligence perspective.
It is almost like a reverse James Bond scenario, right?
It's totally.
No gadgets, no glamour. And the physical reality of the assassin himself is just startling. I mean, he's an old man.
He is.
He has stiff knees. And as he sits in the Mercedes, a drunk couple walks past his car on the pavement.
Right.
Now, instinctively, you or I, we would turn our heads to look at them just out of curiosity.
Naturally.
But he doesn't.
What's fascinating here is the discipline.
Yeah.
He uses the passenger side wing mirror to track their movement because turning your head inside a dark car, it breaks the silhouette.
It draws the eye.
Exactly. Remaining perfectly static like that, it's a learned behavior. It's been drilled into an operative over decades.
But it's not without a cost, right?
No, notice the immense physical toll this discipline takes on him. When he finally steps out of the car, his legs are incredibly stiff.
Yeah.
He is experiencing genuine soreness in his knees. He feels the sharp tightness along his sciatic nerve.
Which, let me push back on the traditional narrative of the highly trained operative for a second here.
Sure.
We always assume that training just magically overrides biology.
Like they're machines.
Right. But here, his biology is actively betraying his training. The adrenaline isn't turning him into a super soldier. It is just exacerbating the pains of an aging body burdened by decades of stress.
That is such a crucial observation. And his tactical choices when he actually enters the apartment building, they reflect that exact tension between his training and his physical limitations.
Because what's the textbook approach?
Well, the textbook approach to infiltrating a multi-story building, what all his Cold War conditioning dictates, is to take the stairs.
Right, to avoid being trapped.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You never, ever box yourself into a confined space like an elevator where you lose your escape routes and your line of sight.
But he doesn't take the stairs all the way up, does he?
No, he doesn't.
He takes this old wrought iron caged lift to the 5th floor, and then he deliberately walks down a single flight of stairs to the target's apartment on the 4th floor.
It is a brilliantly calculated compromise.
It really is.
He is preserving his failing physical strength, saving his knees from 5 whole flights of stairs while still maintaining a tactical approach.
Because he comes from above.
Yes, by arriving on the 5th floor and descending, he holds the high ground. He can observe the target's floor from above before fully committing to the hallway.
And the sensory details in that lift are just incredible. He notices a fresh piece of chewing gum wedged in the cabin.
Right.
And in this highly charged, terrifying moment of impending violence, what is his primary thought?
He wants the gum.
Yeah. He wishes he had a piece of gum to take the dryness out of his mouth.
Well, the dry mouth is the body's acute stress response.
Ah, the sympathetic nervous system.
Exactly. It just halts saliva production entirely. So focusing on the gum, it's a psychological anchor.
That makes sense.
It is the mind grasping at the mundane to avoid being completely consumed by the enormity of the imminent act.
Wow. So he reaches apartment 462, he picks the lock, and of course, it's a perfect fit. He slips inside.
And the atmosphere inside is so strange.
It is. It's utterly contrary to violence. It smells of fresh coffee. There is this slow, melancholy, classical piano music playing from a stereo.
Very domestic.
Very. He moves down a narrow, well-lit passage, and there he finds his target. It's an Englishman wearing blue cotton pajamas.
Right.
And without hesitation, he shoots the man twice in the chest.
The execution itself is purely mechanical, but the psychological crux of the scene happens immediately afterward.
All right, because of what he says.
Exactly.
Mm.
The Russian stands over the dying Englishman and speaks in his native tongue. He says, "Do you know who I am? Do you know why I have come?"
Because he has been waiting for this exact moment for 20 years.
2 decades.
2 decades of just pure grudge. He explicitly wants to visit a grave in Samarkand to tell someone named Misha that the deed is finally done.
He wants that release.
Yes, he is seeking closure.
Yeah.
He is seeking a profound cinematic catharsis.
But he experiences the exact opposite.
He feels nothing.
And this is the profound truth of revenge that fiction usually ignores. As he stands there, fully expecting an emotional release, his mind simply defaults to process and technique.
Wow.
He just feels like a piece of machinery executing a mundane function. The lust for vengeance that sustained him for 20 years just evaporates into the smelling cordite.
I mean, think about the mechanics of that for a second. You hold on to a trauma for 20 years. You build up the moment of confrontation in your head. You rehearse the dialogue.
Over and over.
Right. You imagine the exact feeling of the weight finally lifting off your shoulders, and then the moment arrives, the act is committed, and there's just a void.
It raises a really vital question about how the human body and mind store long-term trauma.
How so?
Well, you mentioned his sciatic nerve pain and his stiff knees earlier.
Yeah.
In many ways, his physical rigidity is a direct manifestation of his psychological rigidity.
Oh, that's interesting.
He has been completely frozen in a state of grievance. But you cannot cure a psychological void with a mechanical act of violence.
It doesn't work like that.
No. When he looks into the Englishman's eyes, trying desperately to summon a sense of fulfillment, the effort is totally hopeless. He just feels the basic, primal fear of being discovered. The tradecraft has entirely consumed whatever humanity he thought he was avenging.
Man. So we start with the literal ghosts of the Cold War, this Russian assassin in the snow. But the narrative masterfully transitions us to the figurative ghosts haunting a specific family in Notting Hill.
Right, a massive shift in setting.
Yeah, we meet a character named Ben. He is 32 years old, he's an artist, and we find him in his studio painting a 21-year-old nude model named Jenny.
The setting completely shifts, like you said, but the underlying theme of deep-seated calcified resentment bridges the two scenes flawlessly.
Because Ben is full of resentment.
Exactly. Ben is in the middle of discussing his estranged father, Christopher Keene.
And Christopher's ghost just looms massive in this room.
Oh, it's suffocating.
Christopher abandoned the family in 1976. Ben was only 6 years old at the time, and his older brother Mark was 8.
Right.
And the stated reason for this abandonment, Christopher was offered a position in the Foreign Office.
Which is code for intelligence work.
Exactly. To Ben's mind, his father looked at his wife and two young sons, looked at the prospect of foreign intelligence work, and just chose the work. He literally walked out.
And Ben's resentment is absolute. It is rigid.
Just like the assassin.
Yes, it's remarkably similar to the Russian assassin's 20-year focus. While painting, Ben actually shows Jenny a scrapbook from his recent wedding to his wife, Alice.
And he points something out very specific.
He does. He makes a point to show her the official wedding announcement in the Times, explicitly highlighting that his father's name was deliberately omitted from the text.
I look at Ben leaving his dad out of the wedding announcement, and, it is exactly like painting a portrait using negative space.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks. Because by trying so hard to erase his father completely, the absence actually becomes the defining focal point of his life. Ben literally tells the model, "The day my father walked out on Mom was the day he ceased to exist."
It is a classic, totally aggressive psychological defense mechanism.
Because if they're dead, they can't hurt you.
Exactly. If you declare the person dead, they can no longer inflict pain. But what makes this family dynamic so analytically rich is the stark contrast with Ben's older brother, Mark.
Right, because Mark is totally different.
Two boys experience the exact same foundational trauma of abandonment, but they deploy totally divergent survival strategies. Mark has taken the opposite approach.
He forgave him.
Well, Mark is reconciled with Christopher. They go to dinners. Mark even joins him on business trips.
And Ben just despises this. He is furious at his brother's compliance. He actually calls Mark a diplomat.
Which is such a loaded term.
Extremely loaded, given their father's supposed Foreign Office career. Ben sees Mark as the guy who just smooths things over to avoid the friction of conflict.
Right.
Ben refuses to let bygones be bygones. He actively rejects the modern psychological framework. He specifically calls out the therapy generation excuse. This idea that you can just write off every selfish antisocial act because the perpetrator had a damaged adolescence or a demanding career.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we are witnessing the cascading collateral damage of the intelligence mindset.
How so?
Well, Ben uses anger and exclusion to fortify his borders. Mark uses conciliation and charm. Mark needs to keep everything on an even keel, or his internal world destabilizes.
But wait, is Mark actually the healthier one here, or is Mark just the more dangerous of the two brothers because he has internalized the manipulation?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right, because Mark figured out that if you play nice, you get access and you don't get hurt.
Exactly. Mark's conciliation might not be forgiveness at all. It might just be adaptation. And this theme of adaptation and betrayal bleeds directly into the next dynamic we see, which is Ben's marriage to Alice.
Oh, right. So Alice bursts into the house, and she is furious, yelling into her mobile phone.
She's very stressed.
Very. Alice is a journalist working for the Evening Standard. She is highly ambitious. She recently interviewed her oldest childhood friend, a woman named Jane, about a drug smuggling arrest.
Which is sensitive.
Very sensitive. Now, Alice promised Jane strict editorial control. She promised her she wouldn't sensationalize the story.
But the reality of newsroom mechanics always intervenes.
Always.
The news desk got hold of the story and entirely reframed it, basically turning Jane into a headline-grabbing wild child.
Right.
And Alice is deflecting all the blame. She is telling Ben that her colleagues betrayed her, that she just casually mentioned the interview over lunch, and the predatory news editor demanded the tape.
But Ben doesn't buy her excuse for a single second.
Not for a second.
He suspects that Alice deliberately leaked the inflammatory details to the news desk herself, specifically to advance her own career.
Because she wants a promotion.
Yes, she wants to transition from features into hard news, and delivering a scandalous scoop about her own friend is exactly the currency she needs for that.
This creates a brilliant, totally devastating parallel.
With the father.
Yes. Look at Christopher, the father. He prioritized his career ambition and the thrill of the Foreign Office over his personal loyalty to his blood family.
And Alice is doing the same thing.
Exactly. Now look at Alice. She prioritizes her ambition over her oldest friendship, effectively betraying her friend for a scoop, and then she lies to her husband about it, hiding behind the institutional bureaucracy of the newspaper.
It perfectly illustrates how the core operating principles of espionage, secrecy, betrayal, the absolute prioritization of the mission over the individual human being, they do not stay contained in the field.
No, they bleed out.
They seep into civilian life like a gas, they infect marriages, they destroy friendships. The culture of lying simply becomes the atmospheric pressure of the house.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And tracing that toxic culture back to its source leads us directly to the man who initiated this cycle of trauma.
Christopher Keane himself.
Right. The narrative moves from the collateral damage of his family to the exact nature of the professional world he abandoned them for.
Because Christopher Keane is not just stamping visas at some consulate.
No, he certainly is not.
The reality of his work is much darker and much more modern. Christopher is now operating in the private sector. He works for a firm called Devisar Corporate Intelligence.
Right.
And he receives a phone call from a man calling himself Bob Randall, who claims to have a minor difficulty in the former Soviet Union.
This transition from state intelligence to private corporate intelligence is arguably the defining shift in the espionage landscape of the late 1990s and early 2000s.
Really? Why is that?
Well, after the Soviet Union collapsed, you had a massive influx of highly trained, state-sponsored operatives who were suddenly without a geopolitical enemy.
Right, the Cold War was over.
Exactly. The peace dividend meant massive budget cuts. So these spies took the skills paid for by the taxpayer to fight the ideological war, and they monetized them.
But how does that actually work mechanically? I mean, do you just update your resume from MI6 assassin to corporate consultant?
Essentially, yes. That's exactly what happened. They formed private intelligence firms.
Oh.
Corporations moving into emerging volatile markets like post-Soviet Russia needed exactly the kind of threat assessment, surveillance, and source handling skills that these former intelligence officers possessed. Geopolitical conflict was simply repackaged as corporate strategy.
So Christopher Keane agrees to meet this Bob Randall, and the location they choose is fascinating.
It's a Café Rouge.
A Café Rouge in Shepherd's Bush. Randall specifically requests a table that cannot be seen from the street.
Which Christopher immediately recognizes as amateurish melodrama.
Yeah, it's so cliché.
It is. He notes internally that first-time buyers in the intelligence market are often jumpy. They want the cinematic experience.
They want the Bond movie.
Exactly. They want code words, hitter tables, and gadgets. And again, we see the stark contrast between the expectation of espionage and the mundane reality of two men just sitting in a chain restaurant.
But the meeting happens. And within seconds, literally upon shaking the man's hand, Christopher Keane realizes that Bob Randall is a complete fake.
Completely fake.
He isn't a corporate client at all. And the way Christopher makes this assessment is entirely visual. It is a masterclass in forensic observation.
Break down the exact visual cues Christopher processes, because this is the true essence of tradecraft.
Okay, so Keane looks at the suit. It's cheap, bought off the peg, not tailored.
Right.
He looks at the white shirt. It is slightly grayed at the collar from repeated washing in a cheap machine.
The details matter.
But the absolute clincher, the fatal flaw in the disguise, is the shoes.
The shoes are always the tell.
Exactly. They are scuffed, they are grayish, they are possibly fake patent leather with little tassels.
Ugh, tassels.
Right. Think about the logic here.
Yeah.
A man who possesses the capital to hire a high-end firm like Devisar Corporate Intelligence does not walk around London in scuffed fake patent leather shoes.
No, he doesn't.
It's like a forensic accountant looking at a tax return. You don't look at the massive numbers they want you to see. You look for the tiny mathematical inconsistencies in the margins.
That's a great way to put it.
You don't need a wiretap if you can read a man's socioeconomic reality in the fraying cuffs of his shirt.
And Randall instantly realizes he has been burned.
Oh, he knows.
The moment Keane's eyes drop to the shoes and linger, the jig is up. Randall drops the act entirely. He reveals his real name is Stephen Taplow.
Stephen Taplow.
And he doesn't work for a corporation. He works for the state. Specifically, he works across the river from Keane's former friends.
Let's decode that terminology for a moment for the listeners. Across the river means Taplow is MI5, while Keane's former agency was MI6.
Correct. MI5 is the security service, handling domestic counterintelligence and organized crime within the UK.
Right.
MI6 is the secret intelligence service, handling foreign intelligence collection. There is a deep historical rivalry and often institutional disdain between the two services.
Well, here's where the dynamics of this conversation get really interesting. Taplow, representing the current active state apparatus, tries to pull rank.
He tries to establish dominance.
Yeah, he tries to make Keane feel like an outsider, a relic of the past who is now just peddling his skills to the highest corporate bidder.
But Keen completely and effortlessly dominates him.
It's almost embarrassing.
It is. And he does it using pure aristocratic public school confidence. When they shake hands, Keen deliberately crushes Taplow's knuckles.
It's like a primate dominance display right in the middle of a Café Rouge.
Exactly. It establishes physical superiority immediately.
Uh,
Then, Keen orders a beer with his patrician, almost condescending smile. He treats Taplow not as a threat, but as a minor, mildly amusing nuisance. He completely controls the pacing of the conversation.
so they get into the meat of the debriefing, discussing the evolving landscape of Russian organized crime. Taplow brings up the new style mobsters.
Yes.
He uses the term avtortet, specifically referencing a highly dangerous individual named Viktor Kukushkin. Taplow notes that these new mobsters are wildly unpredictable and prone to brutal violence like chopping fingers off, which is a stark departure from the older, more traditional Vors.
The transition from the Vors, the traditional thieves-in-law, who emerged from the Soviet Gulag system with strict codes of conduct, to the Avtortet is a massive geopolitical shift.
How so?
The Avtortet are the hyper-violent, totally business-minded gangsters who seized control during the chaotic privatization of Russia in the 1990s. They don't follow the old prison codes, they follow capital.
And Keen, barely breaking a sweat, casually explains the concept of the roof to Taplow, the Krisha.
Yes, the Krisha is the corrupt protection system. In the economic vacuum of post-Soviet Russia, the state could no longer enforce contracts or protect property.
So who does?
Organized crime. They stepped in to provide the roof protection from other gangs and from corrupt state officials, provided that palms were heavily crossed with silver.
Ah, I see.
Keen is showing off his deep, granular regional expertise here. He is proving to Taplow that even though he is technically out of the game, his structural understanding of the threat is vastly superior to the active MI5 agent who is just reading from a dossier.
But right in the middle of this intense, highly classified geopolitical debriefing, an incredible piece of live tradecraft happens.
Oh, this is a great moment.
Taplow spots a thick-set man in a pinstripe suit walking near their table. Instantly, without a millisecond of hesitation, Taplow drops the Russian mob talk and switches into mundane, loud small talk.
It's seamless.
He practically shouts, "So you'll be away all weekend. Why don't you leave me your number?"
And Keen's reaction is flawless.
Totally flawless.
He recognizes the switch immediately. He doesn't look around. He doesn't ask what's wrong. He plays along with deliberate, arrogant boredom, replying, "Or you can just call my mobile. It's printed on my card."
They just sit there.
They sit there, sipping their drinks, waiting until the man in the pinstripe suit gets into a BMW and drives away, before seamlessly resuming their discussion about Kukushkin.
It shows how deeply ingrained this behavior is. They both inhabit a psychological world of perpetual paranoia.
It's second nature to them.
Switching personas to avoid surveillance is as natural to them as blinking. But, it begs a question. Why is an active MI5 organized crime investigator sitting in a Café Rouge talking to a retired MI6 agent turned corporate spy?
Right, why bother?
This is where the trap closes, and the professional world violently intersects with the estranged son's world.
Taplow finally reveals his true agenda, the reason he actually initiated the fake corporate contact. MI5 is investigating a man named Sebastian Roth. Roth is not a mobster in the traditional sense. He's the immensely wealthy, politically connected owner of a massively successful nightclub chain called Libra.
He is the legitimate face of wealth. But Taplow lays out the surveillance data that connects the legitimate to the illegitimate. Roth has a high-powered corporate lawyer named Thomas Macklin.
Yay.
In the past 4 months, Macklin has made 8 separate trips to Russia. On these trips, he completely bypassed the tourist spots and met with a woman named Kristen Miller, who is a known Lithuanian operative for the Kukushkin crime syndicate.
But the operation isn't just confined to Russia. The intelligence trail leads directly back to London.
Right.
Taplow reveals that back in the UK, Macklin has been meeting with Juris Dushev, who acts as Kukushkin's London representative.
The middleman.
Yes. These meetings happen in unassuming hotels in Sussex Gardens. Macklin has been observed walking away from these meetings with cash sums of £80,000.
And it gets more sophisticated than that. Macklin isn't just carrying bags of cash around. The surveillance shows he banked 6-figure dollar amounts into a Cypriot shell company called Pentagon Investments.
Right.
I want you, the listener, to pause and consider the mechanics of this. How does modern illicit finance actually work?
It is entirely reliant on the weaponization of the legal and financial systems. The placement of the dirty money happens through operatives like Dushev.
Yeah.
The layering, the obfuscation of the money's origin happens through the legal fiction of shell companies.
Like in Cyprus.
Exactly. Cyprus is notorious for its favorable tax treaties and strict corporate secrecy laws. A lawyer like Macklin sets up Pentagon investments, hiding the true beneficial owner.
Exactly. You think of money laundering, and your mind goes to movie tropes like briefcases of unmarked, non-sequential bills exchanged in dark, rainy alleys.
Very dramatic.
But the reality is a corporate lawyer taking first-class flights from St. Petersburg to Moscow, setting up Cypriot shell companies, and then taking that integrated, now clean money and funneling it into legitimate luxury brands.
Brands like Sebastian Roch's nightclub chain, Libra.
Right. That is the exact mechanism Taplow suspects is happening. Kukushkin's dirty mob money is being washed through Libra's massive cash flow.
But here is the hammer blow.
Yeah.
Here is why Taplow needs Christopher Keene specifically. Taplow reveals that Mark Keene, Christopher's eldest son, the son who actually forgave him and goes to dinner with him, is a senior executive at Libra.
Boom. The trap snaps shut. The service doesn't want Christopher's analysis on Russian syndicates. They want Christopher to use his paternal relationship to, quote, pick his son's brains.
They want the father to interrogate the son.
They want to find out exactly what the son knows about the Russian money laundering operation.
Look at Taplow's interrogation strategy here, too. He holds back the critical piece of information, Mark's involvement, until the very end of the conversation.
He lets Christopher feel dominant first.
He lets Christopher flex his intellectual muscles about the Kreisha, and then he drops the trump card, using it to completely corner Christopher and forces cooperation by proxy threatening his family.
And while this high-level psychological chess match is happening in Shepherd's Bush, the narrative cuts to the gritty, unglamorous reality of the surveillance state actually executing the operation.
This is such a great contrast.
Over at Heathrow Terminal 1, we meet two MI5 watchers, Ian Boyle and Graham. They are actively trailing Mark Keene.
The contrast drawn here is spectacular. You have the glamorous, high society world of the Libra nightclub, flush with champagne and VIPs, and then you have Ian Boyle.
Good Ian.
Ian is an ex-customs officer. He only joined MI5 to escape his incredibly smug former colleagues. He is sitting in a cold, stark airport terminal.
He doesn't care about geopolitics.
He does not care at all about the geopolitical implications of Russian capital flight. He just wants his shift to end so he can go home, eat a takeaway curry, and watch the Arsenal Champions League game on TV.
It completely demystifies the intelligence apparatus. It's just a job for these guys.
Exactly.
So Ian and Graham trail Mark Keene in a dummy London cab. Let's talk about the mechanics of a dummy cab for a second. How do you follow someone through London traffic without being made?
Well, a dummy cab is a brilliant piece of urban camouflage. It looks identical to a licensed black cab, but it is outfitted with secure communications equipment. It allows the watchers to blend seamlessly into the environment, cycle through shift changes, and observe the target without triggering any counter-surveillance instincts.
So they follow Mark all the way from Heathrow to his brother Ben's house in Notting Hill.
Right?
They just sit there in the idling cab, freezing in the dark, watching Alice hug Mark at the front door.
It's so intrusive.
It is. But let me push back on Taplow's fundamental premise for a second here.
Okay, go ahead.
Taplow explicitly tells Christopher at the cafe that MI5 has absolutely no evidence that Mark is involved in the money laundering.
He claims it's a favor.
Right. He claims this is just an act of kindness, a professional favor, to let a former colleague find out the truth before the hammer falls on Libra. Do you believe that? Does Taplow actually believe Mark is innocent?
That raises a critical question about the inherent deceit of the intelligence services. As Christopher mutters to himself later, people in this business are biologically incapable of saying exactly what they mean.
Yeah, they're trained to lie.
Taplow is almost certainly manipulating Christopher. He is using Christopher as an off-the-books, totally deniable asset to penetrate Libra without needing to secure a legal warrant.
Because it's a win-win for MI5, isn't it?
Absolutely.
If Mark is guilty and involved in the laundering, Christopher is going to inadvertently bring them the proof by interrogating him.
Right.
If Mark is innocent, Christopher clears the board, allowing MI5 to focus all their resources directly on Roth and Macklin. In either scenario, the state gets what it wants, and the Keene family pays the entire emotional and psychological price.
Which brings us to the climactic confrontation of the narrative. The macro stakes of Russian organized crime and MI5 surveillance violently collide with the micro stakes of family betrayal.
Over dinner.
And it happens over a plate of fragrant yam duck.
We move to a pricey, low-lit Chinese restaurant in Queensway. It's described as having the decor of a 1970s nightclub dim, slightly opulent, very
A
secretive.
very specific mood.
Christopher arrives early and waits for his son. And as he waits, he falls into this deep, introspective reflection on his 40-year career in intelligence.
He is grappling with his legacy. He wonders what the appropriate emotion should be when looking back at a life built entirely on deceit.
Right.
Should he feel regret? Should he feel profound shame? He assesses his own methodology and describes himself as a scholar of the long, boozy lunch.
I cannot emphasize enough how incredible that phrase is, a scholar of the boozy lunch.
It's so evocative.
It sounds almost jovial, right? Like a fun uncle. But what does it actually mean in the context of espionage?
It is a devastatingly accurate encapsulation of how human intelligence is actually gathered. His entire professional existence has been predicated on the mechanics of manufactured intimacy.
Manufactured intimacy.
Yes, he lulls strangers into a false sense of security. He plies them with alcohol and artificial sympathy. He mirrors their vulnerabilities until they feel totally safe, and then he sucks them entirely dry of their secrets.
It is the weaponization of empathy. And now, the service has explicitly asked him to turn those exact tools, the finely honed tools of betrayal, on his own son.
And not just any son.
Right, not the son who hates him, but the son who actually put in the work to forgive him.
Mark arrives 30 minutes late. He comes in at a brisk, confident walk, and Christopher realizes he is looking at a mirror image of himself at that age.
The physical resemblance is striking.
Look at the physical presentation alone. Mark is wearing a bespoke, navy Doug Hayward corduroy suit.
The suit is a crucial detail. Fine clothes are a shared passion, a sort of unspoken language between them. And Mark doesn't arrive empty-handed.
No, he brings a very specific gift.
He brings 3 liters of Yuri Doldoruki vodka, brought straight from Moscow.
Why that specific vodka, though?
Because Mark remembered it is his father's absolute favorite brand. Mark is charming. He is apologetic for being late. He is generous.
He's working him.
He is deploying the exact same charm offensive that Christopher used his whole career.
And as the lunch progresses, Mark inadvertently reveals the terrifying depth of that similarity. Mark is talking about his management style at the Libra nightclub.
Right.
He explains a psychological trick he learned from his boss, Sebastian Roth.
Mark explains that if you take the time to remember tiny, seemingly insignificant personal details about your employees, for instance, remembering that a sound technician has a 10-year-old kid who supports West Ham United, it makes the employee feel deeply cherished.
Cherish?
Yeah. Mark refers to this proudly as his method for how to win friends and influence people. He leans across the table and literally says to his dad, "It's all vanity, isn't it, Dad? We all want to feel cherished."
This raises an important question, though. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the philosophical core of the story is laid bare in that single sentence.
What's the question?
Is there any actual moral difference between Christopher's state-sponsored manipulation and Mark's corporate manipulation?
Oh, wow.
Christopher spent a lifetime giving people small gifts, remembering their favorite drinks, and buying their trust so he could exploit them for the benefit of the British state.
And Mark is doing the exact same thing.
Yes, he is remembering football teams to buy the absolute loyalty of his staff for a nightclub empire that is highly likely laundering money for a hyper-violent Russian crime syndicate. Both men view human connection not as a bond, but as a transactional currency.
So what does this all mean for Christopher? He looks across the table, past the expensive vodka and the yam duck, and he sees a perfect mirror image of his own corrupted soul.
It's horrifying for him.
He spent his entire adult life avoiding his family, convinced that his vital work in the shadows required isolation. He thought he was protecting them.
But he wasn't.
No.
Yeah.
Only to realize that his son has organically grown into the exact same kind of charming, sociopathic manipulator in the legitimate business world. Christopher didn't protect his son from the darkness. His son just evolved to thrive in a different version of it.
It is the ultimate crushing tragedy of Christopher Keane. He reflects that he has lived in a separate world of deliberate masquerade.
A masquerade.
He has worn a mask for 40 years. And sitting in that restaurant, he realizes his son wears the exact same mask. When Christopher questioned earlier if he should feel shame for his life's work, this lunch provides the devastating, undeniable answer.
The answer is yes.
Yes, the shame is absolute.
It is a masterful piece of writing and observation. The hidden man seamlessly weaves the massive macro stakes of international finance, Cypriot shell companies, and Russian assassins directly into the microscopic stakes of a family dinner in Queensway.
It really does.
It turns out the true hidden men in this narrative aren't just the literal assassins waiting in rented Mercedes in the freezing snow. They are the fathers hiding behind the impenetrable shield of their vital careers.
And the sons.
And they are the sons, hiding their moral emptiness behind bespoke corduroy suits, expensive vodka, and corporate charm.
It forces a profound examination of the very concept of authenticity. Well, if you spend decades training yourself, whether you are working counterintelligence for MI5 or managing employees in a corporate boardroom, to view every single human interaction as a strategic transaction.
Right.
If you are constantly extracting information, curating loyalty, and leveraging the vanity of others, what happens to your fundamental capacity to love?
That is the question you need to take with you today. As you navigate your own world, your own career, and your own carefully curated professional personas, think about the Russian assassin sitting in the cold.
Think about Christopher Keen staring at his son in the Chinese restaurant.
When the mask becomes your actual face, is it even neurologically possible to be off the clock with the people who are supposed to matter most?
Or do you eventually find yourself standing in the dark, executing a process, expecting catharsis, but finding yourself entirely empty inside?
The chilling thought to leave you with. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and until next time, keep diving deep.